Hey, what's up everyone? I'm going to take these glasses off so you're not seeing that glare. In today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about how I was able to reach the coveted 750 credit score. Now, I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you at least have some baseline foundational knowledge of what a credit score is. You're also probably somewhat of a nerd like myself. This definitely isn't kind of the topic that the average 20-year-old would be watching. So if you are watching this, I salute you. You're setting yourself up for a greater life moving on in the future. So other than giving you the ability to get any girl you want, some of the other benefits of having a good credit score include lower interest rates on your credit card. This one really is a pretty big deal for a lot of people. It hasn't really affected me in any way at this point. Everyone knows that the interest rate on credit cards is astronomical. It might not seem like too much per month, let's say it's 10% or whatever, but compounded monthly over the course of the year, that ends up being over 100% interest, which if you have any knowledge of how the world works, you know that is a lot. So by having a better credit score, it gives you a much better chance at getting those lower rates that hopefully, if all else fails, you don't have a yearly rate of over 100%. Another benefit that might be a little bit more obvious is that it gives you a better chance for credit card and loan approval. Now, everyone has kind of heard that the better your credit score, the more likely you are to get approved for a mortgage on a house or a loan for a car, whatever it may be. This was really the one thing that I knew going into this whole credit score journey. I don't really plan on making any of these big purchases anytime soon in my life, but I know that when the day comes, it will be very nice that I already have a good credit score established so that when I do apply, I can get approved. Another benefit is that you also can get approved for higher limits on your credit line. This means that you can have more credit available to you to use. This benefit kind of plays a lot of roles in establishing the credit score, which I will get into a little bit later on. But this just really allows you to have access to more money in case you need it. And now finally, the most obvious benefit to having a good credit score is bragging rights. So there are a lot of factors that go into your credit score. Later on in the video, I'm going to go in depth in each of those and explain how in my own personal life, how I've been able to attack each of those areas successfully. So there are a couple different companies that have the ability to report your credit score. The two that I'm going to show for the sake of this video is the FICO report as well as the TransUnion report. My FICO score now is around 746 and my TransUnion is 748. I believe one of them fell down 4 points in the last week or so. So of course, when I was planning out this video, I was 750 and now I'm not. But I plan on that score going back up in no time. Now, before I go too much in depth, I do want to clarify that I don't think 750 is crazy by any means. I believe an 850 score is the perfect credit score. So obviously I am not at that point. And in reality, no one is. There are just too many factors that go into it. And there are a lot of different things that can skew it either way. But to give you a little bit more perspective on the nationwide average for a credit score, the average FICO score for an American is 695. For the TransUnion, the average score is 673. So you can see when comparing it to the national average, my credit score is already much higher than the average. But I understand the national average isn't really the greatest picture of where I stand compared to my peers. So to become a little bit more focused, the average credit score for Gen Z, which is my demographic, I think it's 18 to 24-year-olds right now, is 674. Then to go a little bit broader again, the average score for a millennial is 680. So you can see when we get a little bit more in depth into kind of my age range, I'm still much higher than the average. So there are 6 total factors that go into determining your credit score. The first one, and probably the easiest to comprehend, is on-time payments. This really is as simple as it sounds. The reporting companies are looking at your previous monthly statements and just seeing what time and how early you paid your credit bill. Now, one surefire way that I'm sure we all know to decrease your score is to not pay your credit card bill on time. Even if you have no other financial education, this is just something that we all grew up hearing about on TV or in school. So it definitely is important to get your credit card bill paid on time. For me personally, I've always been able to do this right on time. I pay each of my bills in full. I know some companies give you an offer to only pay a certain minimum balance or whatever, and they don't accrue interest on that. But for me and for my sake, I just pay it all off in full before the end of the month, or honestly, I do it right after I make the transaction, so I don't need to worry about doing it by a certain time at all. This is kind of one of those factors that anyone of any age can get a grasp on early. I've really been able to do this well just because the only things I really put on my credit card are things that I can afford and things I can pay for. This might be an issue for a lot of people. As soon as they get a credit card, they see that couple $1,000 limit on there and they just go out and splurge when they might not necessarily have the cash in their checking account to pay for it. I've never done this, and that's why I've always been able to pay off my bill in full. The second factor that goes into your credit score is the total number of accounts that you have. So if I had to make a guess as to which of the 6 factors it is that has allowed me to kind of get ahead of the average person, is this factor. I currently have 5 different credit cards, which I understand is a lot for anyone, but especially a 20-year-old. Through these 5 accounts, I have over $9,000 of credit available to me. Now, obviously, this is pretty dangerous, just because it means I could go out and buy $9,000 worth of anything. The average person might get in trouble here. They might go out and spend this money and then not be able to pay it all off. And then, like I mentioned earlier, with those high interest rates, it just gets out of control very quickly. But luckily for me, I've been able to be very responsible. I really only use one credit card consistently. Each of the others are really just there to be another account for this factor. And this brings me into the third factor, which is credit usage. So credit usage is really just a ratio. And it's another pretty simple factor that is what it says it is. The ratio is just the amount of credit that you use for the month divided by the total credit available to you. So for me, because I have a really good amount of credit available to me, especially for my age, no matter how much I spend each month, it's not going to come anywhere close to being all of it. I'll let you know, on average, I probably spend about $90 a month. So obviously 90 divided by 9,000, that equates to just about 1% of total credit usage. This is obviously very good. The lower your credit usage, the better in the eyes of the different credit reporting companies. But this is a factor that I totally understand. I have a huge advantage just because I am 20 years old. I don't really have too many financial responsibilities, especially because I'm living with my parents. In just a couple of years, I know I will be out on my own. So obviously my financial responsibilities will increase, meaning that I will put more on my credit cards, most likely bringing my credit usage rate up. But at the same time, as the years go on and as my credit score hopefully improves, I should be able to have more credit available to me. So hopefully, ideally, the credit usage is able to balance out, but I guess time will only tell. I certainly think this is another factor that has allowed me to get ahead of the average person, just because I really spend so little on my credit card, but I have a ton of credit available to me. So this is where those 5 accounts really comes into play, and I'm really able to use to my advantage. Now, probably the only factor that I don't have a good grasp on is the average age of credit. This is definitely something that's a little bit more challenging for me because I am only 20 years old. I've only been able to have a personal credit card for 2 years. So that means at max, my average age of credit could be 2 years if I only held one account and I got it right on my 18th birthday. But like I mentioned before, I have 5 cards and I didn't get all of those at the same time. So because some of those cards I got earlier, and as time went on, the average age now is only about 1.2 years. This obviously is not ideal, and you can see how the average American, this can really be an advantage for them, just because, let's say they're 45 years old, they got their first credit card at age 20, that's 25 years already that they have for their credit history. So there's nothing I can really do about this. I think the fact that I have 5 credit cards now certainly brought down the average, but that's another reason why I want to get all those credit cards now, because the sooner I get them, the longer length of history it can be as time goes on. So obviously there's nothing I can really do about my average length of credit at this point, but as I just said, the fact that I have it already established, it'll only help my score moving forward. So one of the last factors that goes into your credit score is your credit inquiries. Now, admittedly, this is a little bit harder to explain. It'll probably just make a little bit more sense if you look it up and do a little bit of research on your own. There are 2 different inquiries that can have an effect on your score. So what your credit inquiries mean is how many times someone looked at your credit score. Now there are 2 different checks. There is a soft check and a hard check. The difference is that a soft check doesn't have any effect on your credit score. This usually happens if you are applying for another credit card. This just means that that credit card company might be looking at your score to determine whether they want to accept your application. So because I've applied for several credit cards at this point, I really only have soft checks on my account. This definitely is an advantage for me. So conversely, a hard check brings down your credit score. Usually this might happen when you are applying for a mortgage or a big loan, some of those bigger purchases that I simply haven't made at this point in my life. But the moral of this story, I only have one credit inquiry, and I don't exactly know where that came from. Maybe one of the credit cards I applied for did require a hard check. Whatever it may have been, I only have that one, and for that, it hasn't really hurt my score too much at all. Oh, and shout out to Dunkin' Donuts, gingerbread coffee, pretty good. Anyway, the final factor that goes into someone's credit score is derogatory marks. Now, admittedly, I don't know too much about this, but just by doing a little bit of research, I saw that this kind of has to deal with those on-time payments from the first factor. If someone does not pay off their loan like they agreed to, or they have missing or late payments, this then can result in a derogatory mark. So this is a mark that shows up on your credit report, and from what I saw, it can last anywhere from 7 to 10 years. So obviously this is not something you want on your report. If a bank is looking through your credit report to determine whether or not they want to grant you a loan, they definitely don't want to see that you weren't able to pay off a loan that you got from someone else in the past. So again, this is something that I don't have because thus far in my life, I've really only had credit card bills, and that's the only thing I've been responsible for paying off. I don't have any big loans that I've needed to repay, and that would give me the potential to miss a payment and result in a derogatory mark. So because of this, I have 0 derogatory marks, so thus it's not bringing down my score whatsoever. So that's the video, guys. I know this one was definitely information dense, but I hope it was helpful for you if you're looking to build your credit score at a young age. I know there's a lot of videos out on YouTube about your credit score, but from my own experience, I haven't seen too many that I can relate to as a 20-year-old myself. As always, if you have any questions at all, you can reach out to me on Instagram. My username is just my last name, @Galbraith. Also, my LinkedIn is in the description, so if you want to connect with me on there, definitely do that. So if you're watching this and you already knew about credit scores, shout out to you, good job. But on the other hand, if this was the first time you were exposed to all this lingo, then that's also a good thing. Again, I appreciate you guys for watching. I hope you all have a great holiday season. Merry Christmas, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.